Hi all, welcome everyone to the new session on comparing various DNS solutions available in the market. So there are lots of DNS services, the various vendors available in the market who provides various DNS solutions. So I thought that based on my experience, I will try to put up and try to compare what all services and features are offered. So in this session, we're going to compare what services based are provided by F5 for the DNS services and what's provided by AWS, and a quick reference to Cisco Umbrella. That's a security provided by Cisco for the DNS services. On that note, let's jump in. So I am Dhruv Sharma. I'm an experienced IT professional and I have following certifications, and you can contact me over LinkedIn using this link. So what brings you to the session? So if answers to these questions are yes for you, so in that case you are at the right place, and I'm going to cover all these points for you when we go through the session. So right now there are two major vendors available in the market that provides DNS services. So one is F5 GTM. That's a big IP DNS service, which provides DNS services across the globe. Anyone can contact F5 to get the services. And second popular vendor is Route 53, provided by AWS. So these two are the major players in the market, and we're going to compare what kind of services these guys offer and how and in which scenarios one should prefer to opt for F5 GTM, and in which scenarios I should prefer AWS Route 53. So let's first start with GTM. GTM basically provides lots of load balancing mechanisms. So if you see lots of load balancing mechanism, like we can see on the slide. And if we go into if we log in on the F5 GTM, which I will eventually show you a quick demo as well, connecting to my GTM in my lab, and I will show you how these are configured. As we can see over here, we can see lots of load balancing mechanism, global availability, ratio, round robin, and topology at the wide IP level. And at the pool level, we can see lots of load balancing mechanism. So I'm going to create a charter. I'm going to compare these two devices and see how if we can compare this charter once we are done with the slides. So if we see from this slide, it is evident that F5 wins when we see about the load balancing options do we have. So at the pool level, if I've given a name cow.com, you can give any name. So you can see global availability, which basically defines which pool member is available, and if that pool member is not available, it will go back to the second one. The ratio is self-explanatory. It load balance the traffic based on the load, round robin, and the topology, which is quite famous. Topology basically refers to a user who is based in India will going to act, if it tries to resolve a name that is www.cow.com, it will basically get a server which is nearest to my location. For example, that's a simple use case is if I am in India and you are in UK, if I try to search google.com, the Google will serve me an Indian based google.com. And if someone in UK tries to resolve google.com, it will going to serve a Google website which is based in UK. So the Google engine identifies a user based on topology based load balancing mechanism to ensure that load is evenly load balanced. So since F5 offers various load balancing mechanisms, I will give F5 a point that more options to load balance. We'd also see go through the load balancing mechanisms options available for AWS later in the slide. As we move on, yeah. So configuration steps. Configuration is very simple for F5 GTM. It can be achieved in just 5 steps. So 5 steps. Yep. So let's jump in. So this is for our demo. This is our lab, and where the F5 GTM is accessible from the management IP 1.6, and it has a self IP. We don't have a high availability for GTM, so we are using a single standalone GTM, which is serving 2 web servers. One is based in UK, another is based in India. So these are their respective IP addresses. So as the first step is to create the data center, as shown in this screenshot. Secondly, go into the server section tab under GSLB and create the server instances. And finally, create a pool member and call those servers what we created in the step 2 in this pool member section. And finally, create a wide IP. In my case, I've created www.cow.com, and you can create any one, it's very simple. And call those pool members what we created in step 3. And finally, define the server address, a listening address. So we define a GTM listener, and we call that GTM listener address in our TCP IP settings to resolve it. Finally, the testing. If we if we try to ping cow.com, for instance, I have used the load balancing mechanism as rounds robin, so it will resolve accordingly. Yeah, the costing method. The costing method, it's a little tricky. If I go back on AWS and try to buy and set up a GTM service, a bare minimum, this is the costing which I have identified. It will change as if we interact with the vendor. So this is a bare minimum setting what I can think of. So what I believe, since setting up an initial costing, I believe takes a bit of a impact on your cost. So I will give a pointer like initial cost is high for F5 GTM. Extra features with F5 GTM, it's a zone runner. That's a typical authoritative DNS management service which is offered. DNS Sec, that's a security service. I won't go into the details because there is already lots of videos and YouTube links I've mentioned. It's basically a security service provided, the resolutions will only happen if trusted security certificates are exchanged. So it will authenticate both server side and a client side who's requesting for a DNS query. It also provides iRule functionality where we can distribute the load across the servers based in India or UK based on complex iRules. So application specific monitor, I control, and CDN support. So lots of extra services which I can think of where it's been provided. So especially this iRule, which I think that basically wins the game, because we have the power of iRule where we can customize our structure within F5, which is typically not available on F5 on AWS, because AWS does not open their inbuilt or in-house structure all to the users. You can just typically go on the browser and customize your settings. That's what I have felt. Before we begin with Route 53, just I can give you guys a quick demo how this this big IP looks like, the configuration. So in my case, I have given a I think in my PPT I have given a name of cow.com, but now I have used dhruv.com. You can basically change it which suits you best. And under the pool member, we can see I have defined UK server pool and India server pool. We can define any type of load balancing. Just for this case, I'm using rounds robin. So the first request will go to UK server pool and the India server pool. But let's look into the pools. Yep, pool list. Pool list, India server pool and UK server pool, and that calls the servers listed over here, India server and UK server. We can call, we can add under the pool, we can add multiple servers. So in our case, we only added one server. If you go back into the pool section, India server, we have only added one member, 132.128. It basically matches with the lab scenario. Yeah, if you go back to a lab, yeah. So this is the typical IP address got 129 for UK and 128 for India. So if I go back to the slides, and from here you can see 128 is for India and for UK is 129. So the setup is very simple, but yes, it's a 5-step process, and it can get messy if we go into those iRule stuff and all. And finally, we have the listener settings, and I have given a listener DNS listener IP address 10.10.10.11. So right now, if I go back and try to resolve this dhruv.com, it should load balance the traffic based on the wide IP. If I try to ping it first, .com. Oops, I think I have to change my my DNS setting of my laptop. Be with me for one moment. So it should match the listener server address, that is 10.10.10.11, and that's what I have configured it on my laptop. Before I test it again, I will try to clear the cache. Okay, fine. So it's resolving into 128 address. Now, if I again clear the cache, if I try to ping it, it's resolving into 129. Great, isn't it? It's very easy. 5-step process to configure your GTM. It's mentioned on the slides. We can, you guys can easily configure it in your lab. So initially, since I've configured the load balancing mechanism, is rounds robin. So you can see rounds robin. So it's doing how it is configured, 128 and 129. And we can even check it on the browser. So it's resolving. So perfect. So I think the configuration part is easy. So 5-step process, and the costing is clear. The extra feature which is provided is mentioned. So I feel these are the pointers what F5 has gained when we configure our policies in our lab. And on that note, let's jump in for AWS. AWS is been provided by Amazon Services, Web Services, where they provide their DNS services, and it, as we have that zone runner configured, where AWS provides some extra services like zone runner, typical authoritative DNS server. AWS is also a typical AWS Route 53 also provided typical DNS services. So we can create various records, AAA, CNAME, and all sort of records in our data center, and it's very easy configuration. So if I go back to my list, the of the tracker, I would usually give configuration is very easy. It's very easy. So it will be clear when we go through the slides. Yep. So load balancing mechanism basically it will, like in F5 GTM, Route 53 has a capability to perform health checks to the A record server to ensure that the servers are up and it is resolved properly. So it offers, like in AWS, similarly to GTM, it has various load balancing mechanism at wide IP and pool level. Similarly, AWS also offers various load balancing mechanism like simple. It just resolves the address. A record is resolved into an IP address. Simple one, the weighted one. We can define that 20% of queries will be went to a server A and 80% will go to server B. And the latency based, like the AWS Route 53 will send periodically a query to those servers, and whichever resolves fast, we can ensure that the query will be resolved by the server which has the least latency. And failover based and geolocation based, like example, like a customer based in US will going to get some we're going to get a response from the server which is nearest to its location, similar to the topology based configuration, the load balancing mechanism what we configured on the F5 GTM. The configuration steps are just we can configure in just 4 steps. I think if I go back, it's 5-step process in F5 GTM, but in AWS is 4-step process. Okay, on that note, let's jump in. That's a typical lab scenario where we have the Route 53, a user try to resolve a server based in UK and India. That's a typical web page when you log in into Route 53 section, where I have hosted a zone dhrtech.com, and AWS offers that you can basically export any you can create a new register a new domain in AWS. It has that functionality available now, or you can migrate or a zone which is already hosted on GoDaddy. I typically feel the zones which are served by AWS are a little expensive, so it's a good idea you can buy a cheap zone from GoDaddy and migrate it to into AWS. The link is available. It's very this link explains very clearly how you can migrate it. And once it is migrated, you second step is to set up a server. We can, in my case, I set up a server in Mumbai and other in London. These are the public IP addresses, and I created a health monitor policies like we have done in F5 GTM, to ensure that it will going to send a query on a periodic manner, and it will try to fetch that index.html file from the AWS web page to check whether the website is running properly or not. And if it is not, it will going to mark that server on AWS as red, or means unavailable. And finally, configure the DNS routing policy, which is very simple. You have to go there and mention the IP address of UK and India server. It is not necessary that you provide a IP address of EC2 instance based server. You can have it on even on internet. So it's not just mandatory. And in the routing policy section, we have to define the routing or the load balancing mechanism, which we discussed in the previous slides. We can define it over here. And finally, the costing part. Again, I believe the initial costing is very less, as we don't need to we don't need to go ahead and configure or maybe purchase a new device, power it up in a data center, because it's cloud based. But yes, I feel that because AWS says that you pay what you use. So if you believe that that your zone will not be very much utilized, or it has a minimum utilization, so in that case you can easily host your domain on AWS. And again, you have a price calculator. The link is available on my slide. You can go there and check and provide your inputs, and from there AWS provides you very transparently what kind of bill you can expect when you host your services on AWS. So I will say initial cost is less, but Service cost could be high. Let's move further. Yeah, so that's a very good link. You guys can always refer to it. Go back and check your calculation and what serves you best. Finally, DNSSEC is also supported with the AWS, and these are the couple of videos, existing links you can easily refer to it. And finally, quick tips: you can create your own AWS account using this link. For those who are not aware of how to use it, we can't complete a session without basically going through the security aspects. So security plays a very vital role, and Cisco Umbrella, that's a DNS security. I'm going to set up a separate video on how to configure, like 5-step process to configure Cisco Umbrella. I'm going to show you how we can do it in a lab. But yes, a quick introduction about Cisco Umbrella, because I went through various videos online and or the documentation online initially, and I could not get a very clear, crisp answer that why should I go for Cisco Umbrella and what Cisco Umbrella is all about. As per Cisco, 90% of requests or the attacks are done based on DNS, and Cisco comes up with a solution of Cisco Umbrella, which is basically initially known as OpenDNS, and Cisco acquired OpenDNS, and now Cisco Umbrella is basically owns OpenDNS. So what's the advantage of that's the question comes in our mind, right? Well, why I should go for Cisco Umbrella? Because it basically ensures that if a user try to access any website, it's a first layer of defense as per Cisco. A user try to access a website, and based on my DNS server setting in my TCP/IP, it will going to resolve the address. And if someone hacks up or modifies your DNS server under your TCP/IP setting, you can be diverted to a website which is fishy, and it can lead to some problems. So the DNS, controlling the DNS in your organization is very important, and that's what Cisco Umbrella is all about. So phishing attacks, Cisco Umbrella protects against phishing attacks, where it prevents you from accessing a phishing website, and the website is there on internet for a long time to Cisco to detect it. It can also prevent against ransomware attacks, because ransomware basically performs a once the user is infected, it will try to connect back to the command center server, and if that command center server, the DNS query, is fishy, and it also uses those complex algorithms which can basically try to detect whether the website is the user is or the script is trying to connect, the reverse connection, is it safe or not, and accordingly it will block it. Finally, Cisco Umbrella also provide content filtering, like any stuff where you can create your complex policies, where it can define whether this set of website or the gambling websites or adult websites, whether you want to allow it or not. Implementation, it's very simple for home-based users. What you typically do, I usually use these DNS servers in my TCP/IP. That's an open DNS server, and once you configure it, you can visit the URI, and it says that you are safe. So this is typically home-based users, and or other personal laptops. We don't need to implement a Cisco Umbrella solution because it's very expensive, and so that's the typical solution. And for the enterprise-based solution, we can basically install a Cisco Umbrella solution, and it provides a more level of authentication. It can integrate with your internal DNS server within your organization to provide you more granular security. Finally, it also provides, if a user is remote, if a VPN-based users, a roaming-based client, a roaming client is basically installed on your laptops to ensure that the resolution of a user, when it's not part of a trusted network, it always happens through a Cisco Umbrella DNS servers. Costing, I think the costing is the below packages are basically available and based on your preferences, whether you want to opt for only wireless based package or you want to use professional insight and platform based packages. You can definitely refer back to these links, which can basically give you more details about the costing and about the services. And finally, the last point, if you have worked on Cisco FTDs, it also provides, we can create a DNS-based policies, which can, again, has an ability to intercept the DNS-based traffic and it try to look into the domain names and find if the domain names are malicious or not. A typical access control policies we can create on Cisco FTDs, where we can define policies based on the DNS ports, and secondly, the DNS based intelligence, where Cisco APT team or Talos team provide its Cisco intelligence data to the Cisco, where we can create those whitelisting and blacklisted policy, and based on your requirement, you can either send the traffic to domain not found. The response, if I create a policy, if a user try to access a gambling website like 777.com, we can we don't respond to the query at all, or we can the 777.com, the gambling website, we will respond back to the user that domain was not found, or you can just drop it. Finally, the questions, you can just ask your question on the video, on the link on the question section below, and you can access these website under the description section. So like and comment on your comment on this video, and thank you for your time. I hope this session was informative, and I hope to see you again on the next session on Cisco Umbrella. Thanks for your time and have a good day.